some perverted literature published in a dirty bookstore. Her work in this area is guided by audience studies, theories of gender and sexuality, and media literacy. If I put this dummy on the radio for 3 minutes, she'd have a nervous breakdown. You'd see how media literate she is. Current research projects by this dummy, this is at a university. Current research projects by this dummy involve 50 Shades of Grey readers, the impact of social media in fans' relationship with Lady Gaga, masculinity and male fans, messages about class and food in reality television program, and messages about work in children's television programs. Melissa is vice chair of ICA's Popular Communication Division and is co-chair of the committee hosting, I can't even read this, but she's a real big shot, and she has so many awards that were given to her by her sisters. Melissa's excellence in the classroom has been recognized by the MU Chancellor's Committee on the Status of Women, the Intercollegiate you get the picture. They make up awards, they write their own journals, they teach rubbish to our children, and then they riot in the streets. Garbage! Filth! I want to read you some headlines. Headline 1, Ayatollah Obama stopped by federal court. That's right. The Ayatollah Obama, the Ayatollah in the White House, was told by a 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit that his plan to grant amnesty to 4.3 million illegal aliens is wrong. Now, of course, that didn't stop the Goebbels of our time, Josh Ernst, from lying for his commander-in-chief. University of Missouri Police asks students to report hurtful speech. Hurtful speech? You mean the First Amendment is dead in Missouri? I'm not making this up. The Missouri University Police Department sent an email to students Tuesday morning urging them to call them and report any hurtful speech they encounter on the campus. Now, you understand that this is insane because hurtful speech is protected speech. In fact, as we all learned, the First Amendment was written specifically to protect controversial speech. You don't need a First Amendment to protect polite speech. You need a First Amendment to protect hurtful speech. Now, if you don't understand that the mobs on campus, as I have been warning you both in Government Zero and on this program, are Mao Zedong's offspring in a new generation and a new iteration, then you don't even understand history and you're condemned to repeat the nightmare of the Chinese Communist Cultural Revolution. The mobs on campus are the Red Brigades of our time, and they are being orchestrated, by the way, by Barack Obama's White House, as sure as I'm sitting here, because he congratulated them for shutting down free speech. This came to us from the Week magazine. Out magazine just named President Obama the LGBT community's ally of the year. The cover marks the first time a sitting president has been photographed for an LGBT publication. While Out says Obama started out his presidency as coy, even awkward on the subject of LGBT rights, the president's evolution led the magazine to crown him their LGBT ally of the year. The president's evolution. Now, I'm just reading a quote on the word evolution, but you know, the way I use the word evolution could be considered hurtful. So it could be that soon words themselves will not only be considered suspect, but the way you pronounce the words could be somehow violating someone's sensitivities. Let's get back to the serious issues here, and I do want to get back to China's Red Guards. I think it's a very important learning moment to see what these racist pigs on the Missouri campus are actually doing to freedom of speech. I want you to understand that you can be a racist pig of any race. Did you know that? And you got to throw their words back in their face. This is coming out of certain communities only. When you tell people to shut up, to get off your campus, throwing reporters off the campus, do you think that's limited to a certain race or a certain culture or a certain time? So you have to look back on who were China's Red Guards, and I explain it deeply in my book. It's so important for you to know that this revolution that occurred in China is occurring right now in America. And while Mao was doing it to enforce communist dogma, now pay attention to what I'm about to say to you. He wanted to rid China of the so-called four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. If that didn't put a chill up your spine, then you are immune to learning anything. This cultural revolution wound up in the deaths of millions of Chinese. And guess who responded to Mao's call? Youths. And they formed groups known as the Red Guards, just as you're seeing on the Missouri campus, just as you're seeing on the once great Yale campus. They were made up first of students, ranging from as young as elementary school up to university students. And then, as Mao's killing cultural revolution gained momentum, younger workers and peasants joined the movement. And the Red Guards did what? They burned ancient books. They destroyed Buddhist temples. They destroyed Chinese antiques. They killed Pekingese dogs. Did you know that? They killed all the Pekingese dogs in China because Pekingese dogs were associated with the old imperial regime. And so very few of these dogs survived past the Cultural Revolution. They were killed by the Red Guards. The breed has become nearly extinct in its own homeland. Now, pay attention to the next one. Mao's Red Guards, very much like Obama's student protesters, publicly humiliated teachers, monks, former landowners, or anyone else suspected of being counter-revolutionary. You see this going on in the LA Times or the San Francisco Chronicle, where they're outing people who use too much water. You're seeing it with the goon squads on the campuses demanding that college presidents publicly apologize with handwritten notes. You don't understand history. I do. I'm paid to understand it. You're paid to walk around and enjoy yourself. I'm paid to suffer for your sins of ignorance. They humiliated anyone who disagreed with them. They humiliated publicly someone they called anyone who was a rightist, was paraded through the streets of their town with mocking placards hung around their necks. And in time, the public shaming became violent. People were beaten to death in the streets. Many Chinese committed suicide as a result of their ordeal. Do you understand what this social turmoil was? Do you know what it did to the intellectual and social life of China? Do you know what the vermin on the campuses are doing to the intellectual and social life of the United States of America? I hope you understand that what happened in China is happening now in America in baby form, and it's being orchestrated by Chairman Obama. Yes, you may think that it's about racism, but it has nothing to do with racism. It's about the left-wing agenda. They are messianic in their zeal. They are no different than ISIS in their desire to control dialogue. The only thing separating them from ISIS is a gun or a sword. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or Swiss America. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. I want to use this little moment to take a hiatus from what we're talking about to a somewhat related issue. I was watching a movie last night called Unbroken. I had seen it before, parts of it. It's a little too long, and it's about an Italian-American athlete who was picked on. They called him every derogatory name imaginable when he grew up, I think, in the Middle West. You know, all the names that were applied to Italian immigrants at that time were applied to him, and it only made him tougher and harder. And he fought more, harder. He fought back when the boys picked on him. He didn't go crying like a baby to shut them up. And then he became an athlete, and he became an Olympic gold medal winner. An amazing movie. Well, then, of course, World War II comes around. He becomes a pilot. I believe he's a pilot on a B-24, which gets shot down over the Pacific. And he survives, I don't know how many days at sea, with one or two fellows in the raft. And then he's captured by the Japanese, who torture him mercilessly to break his spirit. I think his name was Zampiri. I don't remember his exact name. I apologize. And he survives the Japanese torture. Some of the most vicious vermin on the planet were the Japanese in World War II. I mean, it's all different today, but they were very much like ISIS. They beheaded people. They beheaded Americans and Australians. They went on a rampage in Beijing. In China, not in Beijing. The rape of Nanking, where women were raped repeatedly until they died. The atrocities were equal to that of what ISIS is doing, incidentally. It's almost identical in terms of madness. The point is not to have you get angry at Japanese. That's not the point. The point is that the movie itself and the bravery of the young men who fought in World War II and the young men who fight right now against the totalitarian vision of the Islamo-fascists is what I'm trying to talk about. And how the left is trying to expunge Christianity from the military at the most rapid rate imaginable under Ayatollah Obama. And I watched these boys in those airplanes, even in the fictionalized version, praying to Jesus before they got in the plane, wearing crosses as they flew in their plane, believing that their God and God's Son was on their side protecting them. And I think, how can this country ever fight a war again and win it when you have such degenerates running the military and such degenerates running the government that they won't even permit a young man to follow his own religion unless he's a Muslim, in which case, of course, they bend over backwards, as you well know, to accommodate such religion. And then I saw documentary footage the same night on the American Heroes channel about the invasion of Tarawa, where so many Marines were killed. And I saw prayers on the deck of the ship. I love documentaries, black and white. And I see a priest leading prayers on the deck of a ship about to assault a heavily guarded island. And I see the faces of the boys. These young boys are 18 years old, 19 years old. They look like your neighbor's son or your own son. And I saw the reverence in their faces. They were given the benediction by the priest before they went ashore, many of whom would lose their lives or their limbs, to take battle against this vicious enemy. And something in me started to weep for what this man has done to this country. He certainly didn't start this attack upon faith in America, but Ayatollah Obama has certainly escalated this attack upon the Christian faith in particular to an extent that I don't know how a Christian can even survive in the U.S. military today. And on that note, I will pause as we see Ayatollah Obama's handiwork coming to pass in Missouri, Ferguson, Detroit, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Oakland, wherever you turn. He has created nothing but hatred and dissension. And that's why I call it Government Zero.
Savage.